Good afternoon, and welcome everyone to our virtual event entitled Are You OK, Zoomers? Manifesting a Better Reality for Gen Z. I'm Mark Alvarez, one of the senior business directors here in Asia, and I will co host this session with my partner April Chow, one of our directors in the region. We will be joined by Yuri Vandenberg, a co founder, partner, and future consumer expert at Insights Consulting. Yuri has extensive experience on all aspects of marketing to teens and young adults. He is a AMA awarded global thought leader and marketing author and professor on the impact of next gen on marketing, business, and on consumer trends. So the whole presentation recording and a copy of the full report will be shared to your registered email after this event. So alternatively, you can also download a copy straight from our website, which you can see in the next slide. So you can visit that web address that you see now on screen. But before we dive into the findings, let us try to understand why Gen Z. Of all the topics, why Gen Z? Without a doubt, Gen Z is already the world's largest generation cohort. And actually, it accounts for a third of the global population. In fact, when we zoom in APAC, this segment will account to about a quarter of the region come 2025. And when we combine this with the millennials, this will already make up half of the entire region. And with the sheer size, we know that if we want to future proof our brands, we need to spend more time with this segment. That's why we decided to venture into this research. So we have a fresh understanding how the Zoomers are doing. Are they okay? And how they compare with the other generations. So in this research, we spoke to around 9,000 consumers across the 8 Asian markets that you see on screen, representing 4 generations in an online survey. So while the focus of the presentation is Gen Z, we want to make sure that we be able to actually compare this segment versus the other generations. So to standardize, we followed this age cut to define the generation. But please do note that due to some ethical research code practices in Asia, we have adjusted the age definition of Gen Z, starting at 20 years old for Taiwan and 18 years old for the other 7 markets. So more or less, we're talking to and representing the older Gen Z in this report. So in the next 40 minutes, Yuri will share with us some answers to key questions, key burning questions around, say, the effects of the pandemic on Gen Z's, say, mental health and future. Are they now more into brands that are exclusive or inclusive or both? How do they look at career, money, and success? Is the metaverse really their new hangout place? And are NFTs really the next big thing? So in the course of the presentation, April and I will share also some interesting Gen Z stories coming from the region. I'm sure you'll have questions, so feel free to type in those in the chat room. All right, so over to you, Yuri.
Thanks so much, Mark, for this nice introduction, and welcome all of you to this webinar. So the OK Zoomers title Mark already shared with you. It's a bit relating to what Gen Z would say to everyone older than them. So they often say, okay, boomers. So I thought, let's make a presentation on this and call it okay, Zoomers. Zoomers is another term for Generation Z, of course. But the real title is, are they still okay? I have 2 Gen Z daughters myself, aged 14 and 18. And lately, I've been really worrying a bit if they're still feeling okay, because let's be honest, in the past 2 years with the pandemic, we almost chained them to their bedrooms. They couldn't go out, have fun, go to parties. Bars and restaurants were closed for a while. They missed out on important milestones in their lives, like graduation, proms. Everything was moved online. So this must have had an effect on them because they're still in their formative years. Of course, it had an effect on all of us, but when you're coming of age, this has a bigger impact truly than when you're older like us. So that's also one of the reasons I wanted to do a global study to check if my kids are still okay. And one of the themes we wanted to take on in the survey was how are they feeling mentally? So how is their mental health? And we already knew that even before the pandemic, this is a generation that is struggling with stress and with mental health. And what we saw in the study, we've just finished, actually, the field was done in June this year, so it's only a couple of weeks old. We see that the youngest generation, also in Asia, has significantly higher stress levels, with about almost half of them stating that they feel stressed, too highly stressed, which is significantly higher than older generations. You will also see at the bottom of the slide with the arrow that the stress levels are the highest in Singapore and in Hong Kong, Philippines, where Mark is located. It's also on the right side of the arrow, so also significantly more stressed than the 48% that's mentioned in the slide, whereas on the left side of the arrow, Thailand, for instance, the stress levels are a bit lower. But we can increasingly see manifestations of distress with this young generation. I'm sure you remember the last Summer Olympics last year, also postponed because of the pandemic in Tokyo with 1 year. And maybe you remember the women's gymnastics final where Simone Biles, representing part of the US team, decided to withdraw from the final. And to me as Gen Xer, when I saw this live on the TV screen, I was like, this cannot be happening. I mean, these are the Olympic Games. I never saw that before. Someone saying, you know what, I'm not participating because I have to protect my mental health. But I think that's the first real difference with all the generations, that this generation is becoming more aware of the impact of stress on their health and is trying to talk more about it and also to protect their mental health more. So when we asked the ones who indicated, I feel stressed, too highly stressed, what are the reasons? So only to this subpopulation in our sample, we can see that for Generation Z, the significant first reason, the top reason, is actually, just like Simone Biles, related to her job or also to studies of young people in Asia. Sometimes it's not just external expectations, it's also internal expectation. Like I want to do better than my parents, and it's becoming harder and harder to do better. So we're raising levels here, and it's the main source of stress. The number two in Asia, financial worries, as you can see, is less significantly differing for Gen Z or for millennials, because also Gen X has financial worries. Whereas mental health is another one that's higher for the younger generation. And of course, mental health, it's a bit a correlation, because you could say mental health can be a source of stress, or stress can be a source of mental health problems. So it works in both ways, actually. But then the last one on the slide there, you clearly see the difference between the youngest generation and even millennials, or Gen M, as you also call them, in Asia. Comparing myself to others, that is significantly higher. And to illustrate this, I have a fragment of an episode of the HBO show Euphoria that I will share with you now.
Kat hated herself. But the problem with hating yourself is you can't really talk about it. Because at some point recently, the whole world joined a self-help cult and won't shut the fuck up about it.
Kat, you're one of the bravest, most beautiful human beings I have ever seen.
That's not true.
Yes, it is. I wish I had your confidence.
But I don't, feel healthy.
Yes, you are.
No, seriously, I'm not.
Kat, you just have to love yourself.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you. I fucking hate myself.
Every day you get out of bed, it's an act of courage.
That's easy for you to say. You don't have, fucking mental problems.
Yes, I do. Why do you think I look like this?
Are you kidding? I wish my mental problems made me look like you.
Trust me, you don't.
Trust me, I do. You're the most beautiful person I've ever fucking seen.
Maybe by a white, cis, male, heteronormative standard?
Oh my god, are you fucking joking? Just said the fuck. Kat, are you fucking serious? It's not you fucking talking, it's the patriarchy! No, society puts things into your mind. I don't care about society. I feel like shit.
Cat, you need to smash all beauty standards.
But I can't even get out of bed.
You have to love yourself.
You need to find your inner fucking warrior.
Become a bad bitch, just like you did last year.
But that wasn't even real.
It looked real.
That was the point.
I found it inspiring.
Shut the fuck up! Love yourself! 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 Love yourself!
So quite a strong fragment, and I use the F word a lot. But apart from that, Euphoria is really a nice series to increase your touch with the young generation, you could say. And this fragment illustrates clearly how Kat is comparing herself to the beauty standards and to her friends. We see this in real life in the fragment, but normally it takes place on social media, of course. We also saw a good example of what you can call toxic positivity, and where it's mostly good to stay optimistic and to be positive all the time. At certain points, when you give positivity at the wrong dose to the wrong person at the wrong timing, then it can be toxic because it leads to more stress. They say to Kat, you have to love yourself, take care of your internal warrior. And it is raising the stress levels to our young generation as well, if they always have to feel happy and have to look good. Now, luckily, increasingly, we see role models, celebrities, but also day-to-day social media content creators opening up on social media and becoming more authentic. The hashtag #NoFilter movement, for instance. This is Bella Hadid, who recently, during an Instagram Live, started to weep and talk about her anxiety and depression problems. And when more role models are doing this, it opens up the conversation for our Generation Z as well to talk about their mental health problems. Another take on this is the role of social media, clearly. And Lush, which can be seen as the body shop of Generation Z, recently decided to stop all social media channels. So if you would go to Facebook page or Instagram of Lush, the last post you would see is 26th of November last year, and it's a post saying, be somewhere else. And they explain, like the quote on the screen, that Lush is actually designed to help people to switch off, to relax, to take a bath with the bath bombs, and to pay attention to their well-being. And the founder said social media do exactly the opposite, because the algorithms on TikTok, for instance, you get one video after the other video, and it's very hard to switch off. So it doesn't make sense as a personal care brand to still be involved with social media that do the opposite. And they advise young people not to stay on social media, but really to live in the moment and to enjoy life. And I think, Mark, you also had some local examples of brands tapping into this space.
Yes, Yuri, thank you. Actually, what's interesting is this campaign that Dove launched in China. There was actually an interesting statistic regarding this. There was actually a research that revealed that 7 out of 10 women in China do retouch their selfies before posting. So it's really an interesting statistic, which can often result in a conventional image of beauty that loses any sense of the real woman behind the selfie, because they need to retouch. And actually in Chinese, this is described as a face blind. So selfie taking and photo editing actually leads users to compare their actual appearance to an idealized and unrealistic retouched appearance that is impossible to achieve in real life, right? And scientific studies have shown that young women who edit and post selfies to social media can report feelings of anxiety and low self-esteem. So to tackle this, I would say emerging and a bit of alarming trend, Dove actually launched this campaign. No? They call it My Beauty, My Say. So the campaign, in a documentary style film, follows several young Chinese women who share their personal stories regarding their appearance and talk about their beauty anxiety. So this is a way of, of brand like Dove helping the young Chinese women face on these anxieties. Another interesting case is coming from BYS Philippines. Be Yourself Philippines. So I guess with the alarming rise of cases on chronic stress, depression, and anxiety, we saw that that opportunity to help these people who experience these. No? So BYS Philippines has created a dedicated website for mental health support, which actually happened in a very more opportune time now. So they launched a digital platform using the same acronym, BYS, Break Your Stigma, to help Filipinos gain access to a directory of mental health professionals that they can connect with and other resources that can empower them to take control of their own healing. So those are some interesting cases that relates to this topic, Yuri.
Thanks so much, Mark. And as you mentioned with the Dove case, this social media and the face editing tools, they have an impact on the young generation, and they also are lowering self-esteem, but also leading to a confidence crisis. And what we see in our study in Asia is that almost 6 out of 10 of Generation Z is claiming that they're often lacking confidence. And this is even significantly higher in Singapore and in the Philippines. Actually, the can you can see twirling on the screen is a real existing drink. It's a startup from some Gen Z entrepreneurs. And they say what our generation needs is not extra energy like Red Bull, but we need mood boosting ingredients that give us more confidence. So the name of the brand is actually Confidence, and it has ingredients like magnesium, 5-HTP, GABA, rhodiola that help to reduce this anxiety. Now, up till now, you could say, Yuri, that's a quite negative view on our generation. They are stressed, they lack confidence. But luckily, when we go further into the data, we saw that Generation Z are still optimistic. They're still feeling okay. We see that the happiness levels of Generation Z are not lower than the happiness levels of the older generations. And talking about the pandemic, most of them actually saw it as a fresh start or a great pause during which they learned a lot about themselves. They learned new skills. Some started learning a new language or started coding, but also new hobbies, and they were really focusing on personal growth. And here they expect from brands that they are supporting them in these life goals and coaching them actually in how they can achieve a better life for themselves. Again, you see the markets in Asia where this is even higher than 7 out of 10 for Gen Z, and actually for Gen MZ, we could say Gen MZ, because it's also the case for millennials in Asia. And it's a bit lower in Singapore and in Hong Kong. So to sum up this first part of the presentation, we talked about, are they okay or are they feeling broken? And although they are stressed out, they are suffering a bit from mental health and confidence problems, they are still optimistic and happy, and they see the pandemic as a fresh start. And here brands can take the positioning of being a life coach to our young generations. Let's move to the second part of this presentation. And this theme is called, Are You Jokey? Jokey related to playfulness, to humor, to entertainment, you could say. And there's one thing also is a way of de-stressing or coping with stress. And it's, of course, escapism. So we saw that young generations after the lockdowns are really ready to party again and ready to roar. This is a campaign from Europe, from Scandinavia, Stockholm, where an insurance company called Hedvig did an out-of-home company at the start of the academic year. It was the first academic year in 2 years after the pandemic, where students could actually go back to their schools and to the student cities. And the title of the campaign was Go Get in Trouble. Please go get in trouble, have some fun. But it's, of course, an insurer. So they said, especially to the parents, and here you can actually buy a student insurance when they do get in trouble. The picture you see to the right looks like a vandalized out-of-home campaign, but it was part of the campaign to actually visually stress the headline of the campaign. So they worked together with JCDecaux to create look-alike vandalized billboards. And this is also something that our generation really likes, humor and playfulness in campaigns, like the one we just were sharing. You can see that in Asia, Most people like humoristic and playful brands, also older generations, but it's still a bit more significantly higher for Generation MZ, and also higher in the Philippines and in China. And often, if you look at how Generation Z is communicating, is staying in touch with themselves, it's by creating creative humoristic content. If you think of TikTok, for instance, it's all about the humor and the fun, and they're creating memes that often go viral. For instance, this is one international example, Arc'teryx. Arc'teryx is a 35-year-old brand of very expensive out-of-home clothes. And at a certain point on TikTok, it became a trend to wear the jackets not outdoors like they are usually portrayed in campaigns, but by wearing them under the shower and showing that it's rain or shower proof even. And then it moved to clubs where you would find videos on TikTok with a lot of likes, like the following one.
Arc'teryx on me, no, we don't run no Patagonia. Arc'teryx on me, I could go hiking in Snowdonia. Question got the packet, yeah, stinking like ammonia.
So you could say the jacket is not only rainproof, but also champagne-proof in the end. One of the companies, media companies that understand that memes and the creativity of this young generation is Netflix, of course. Netflix, with the 4th season of Stranger Things, was allowing their viewers and fans to recreate some of the parts of the episodes or the teaser video that they created by sharing the song of Kate Bush, which led to more than 1 million videos on TikTok using the footage and recreating parts of that teaser video. Let's have a look. Nice done, I would say. And this even led to the old Kate Bush song, Running Up That Hill, re-entering the billboards up till number 2, just beyond Harry Styles' new song. So this is a 1985 song that became popular with Generation Z because of TikTok. So often songs, music, but also TV series are really becoming popular on this new, well, relatively new medium, on this popular medium for Generation Z. I think, Mark, you also have a local example.
Yeah, Yuri, you're right. And actually, it's also a video campaign. So it's actually done by Skittles. So there was a series of video ads that were released on Bilibili, where deadpan characters spoke only in acronyms. So viewers then were challenged to participate and guess the acronyms used, which led them to create their own videos and then spreading the content further and garnering attention. And then the final video made of user-generated content revealed that the answer is actually Skittles brand name in Chinese. So maybe if you can play the video, Yuri.
CHT 是什么？
彩虹糖，
超荒唐。
缩写彩虹，吃定彩虹。
Thank you, Mark. Fantastic example of the playfulness and the humor and tapping into the culture of this young generation. Let's move to how this generation is involved with the metaverse. And we saw in our study that in Asia, about 20% of Gen Z has already created an avatar, and the same amount almost has already paid for digital goodies for their avatars, like clothes or shoes, in the past 6 months, even a bit higher in Thailand. And there again, we also have a local example.
Yep. So actually, this one is again one from China. Shanghongshu's platform is actually all about metaverse makeup. So the platform allows you to, they share DIY tips on how to look like your favorite digital avatar. as well as popular hashtags like AI goddess, and hashtag meta makeup that have quickly emerged as beauty trends, rising in popularity. So definitely, this is a space where a lot of our Gen Zers are now present.
Thanks, Mark. So they do have the metaverse mindset, which is also something we saw in the data of our study. This generation, Generation Z, but also Generation MZ, is of course a gaming generation, much more than previous generations. Not only gaming, they're also using games to stay in contact with their friends, to hang out with friends in virtual worlds. So they're chatting while gaming. They're also watching other people play games on Twitch, for instance. So it makes sense to be present in gaming environment, even sometimes for industries that we think are not present on games. This is an example from Pfizer working in Brazil. So they work together with GTA, Grand Theft Auto, also quite popular game, where they recreated a virtual vaccination center for your avatar. So you could get your avatar vaccinated. And then the avatar received a badge that gave it more immunity while playing the game. And of course, with the message, better health for your avatar in the game means if you get vaccinated, you will have a better health as well. And this really helped to raise the awareness about vaccinations in Brazil among young people, and also to raise the amount of young people getting vaccinated. Even in food and beverage, FMCG, Coca-Cola understands the importance of virtual worlds. So they created Coca-Cola Creations, launching limited editions of which the QR code on the cans give you access to virtual goodies. For instance, the first one that's already present in Asia, I saw it in Singapore last week, is called the Starlight. And with the QR code, if you scanned it, you could see an online concert of Ava Max. In the meanwhile, they've also launched the Coca-Cola Byte, which is clearly related, even the logo, to gaming or Roblox or Minecraft environments. And in this case, the QR code would give you an extra game in Fortnite, where you could also get a virtual can of the Coca-Cola Byte. But I believe, Mark, there's also one example from Asia, from the finance industry.
Yeah, interestingly, it's not only the FMCG brands that are engaged now in metaverse, but well, finance is also playing and involved into this space now. So in March, actually, HSBC claimed to become the first global bank to really enter the sandbox metaverse, where it actually bought a plot of land to engage with sports, esports, and the gaming fans. So when they announced this partnership, the goal is really to open up a host of opportunities for virtual communities across the world to engage with global financial services providers and the sports communities in the sandbox metaverse. And one of the initiatives also that HSBC is planning to do inside the metaverse is to start a metaverse discretionary strategy portfolio, investing now in the virtual world for private banking clients in Asia. So, and they're planning to focus on 5 key areas. So infrastructure, computing, virtualization, experience, and discovery, and even the human interface. So clearly, the investments that our new generation can do is not limited to the physical world anymore. They're very much open and encouraged to invest in metaverse.
Thank you, Mark. So summing up this second theme, Are You Joking? We talked about the importance of memes, playfulness, and humor, but also we talked about how gaming and the metaverse is important for this young generation. And here a brand can offer platforms for creativity, whether it's on social media, TikTok challenges, and escapism, but they also need to be present in virtual worlds. Let's move to the next theme, and we cannot talk about Generation Z without talking about the wokeness of this generation. But they have a specific way of being woke. And I think one good example is what happened during the presidential elections in the US.
Oh no, I signed up for a Trump rally and I can't go. I'm sick. Oh no, I signed up for a Trump rally and I can't go. I'm sick.
So this video was viewed more than 1 million times. It was a boycott video, and it all started with the BTS army. We will talk about the BTS and the importance of K-pop in Asia a bit later on as well. They started this boycott on Trump by creating videos and trying to motivate people to sign up to go to a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and registering for it, but not showing up. They were also clever enough to remove the video within 24 hours when they did this whole online boycott, so that the Republicans, the presidential campaign team, didn't get any notice on what was happening, with the result that when Trump finally did the rally, there were only like 6,000 people in a stadium that could fit easily 25 to 30,000 people. So this shows the power of this young generation in boycotting, using social media and media in general. And we also see that in the results of our data. So we can call them click activists or clicktivists. They are voicing their opinions on social media significantly more than other generations. And again, we also see that they're activists themselves, but I also expect brands to have a point of view and to be more active when it comes to social issues. For instance, 4 out of 10 of Generation MZ would like to pay more for brands that are owned by females. And this is significantly higher, by the way, in China, where it's more than half. So the girl boss thing is really important in China. But we also see that they want brands to become more sustainable, also in Asia, with 7 out of 10 Generation Zers saying, I would pay more for a sustainable brand, significantly higher in China and in the Philippines. And here I think, April, you have a local example.
Yes, thanks, Yuri. And an example of wokeness from Korea, and it started with BTS again. So what happened was recently on a live stream, BTS K-pop member Jungkook mentioned he has been drinking kombucha. Shortly after the live stream, Tizen, the kombucha company, sales jumped by 500% as a direct result of Jungkook mentioning the company. In response, Tizen donated part of the profit, 50 million Korean won, to Korea's Mira Welfare Foundation, an organization that offers social welfare services to people with mental or physical disabilities to help them integrate into the society. Back to you, Yuri.
Thanks so much, April. Gen Z, so Gen Z is also challenging other societal issues. For instance, they still feel that there are too many taboos in society. Also, when it comes to gender, with almost 7 out of 10 Gen Zers in Asia agreeing that there are still too many gender stereotypes, and it's higher in South Korea, as you can see with the flag. 6 out of 10 also agrees that gender identity is something that can change over time, so something that is fluid. And here we see in China and Thailand that the results are higher. Now, brands again have to reflect this changing in the society with younger generations. This is DC Comics' new Superman, who is bisexual. And April, you also have one example from Asia.
Yes, that's right. So here we have an example from Singapore. So as Singapore moves towards a cashless society, buy now, pay later platforms are becoming an increasingly popular mode of payment in Singapore. So BNPL is a flexible form of short-term financing that basically allows consumers to pay for goods over time through interest-free installments. It first became available in Singapore in 2017. Notable Singapore-based BNPL companies include Hula, Rely, Pace, and Atomy. In recent years, BNPL has started to gain traction. So a major contributor was the increased usage of e-commerce platforms during the pandemic. Atomy works with partners such as Shein to provide BNPL services. Atomy also kicked off an ambitious cross-country media campaign featuring Atomy's brand ambassadors and K-pop superstars, Astro focusing on freedom of expression and gender fluidity.
패션의 성별이 무슨 상관이야?
내 맘대로 입으면 안 된다고?
널 보여주는 걸 두려워하지 마.
Own your expression. It's time to own it.
Right. And another example, and this time from India, a new campaign from P&G personal care brand Olay in India, #StemTheGap, asked very important questions. Why are young girls presented with kitchen sets on their birthdays, while boys are given toys, robots, or construction sets? The campaign cites statistics from United Nations saying that in India, women made up a mere 14% of the workforce in STEM. As part of the campaign, Olay unveiled a hard-hitting film highlighting how unconscious bias teach girls that STEM is not for them, and invites people to collectively address this to #StemTheGap. The campaign says the problem is rooted in cultural barriers and stereotypical gender roles, with women often being stereotyped as caregivers, homemakers, and restricted in their fields of study to teaching, nursing, fine arts, and home economics, amongst the likes of it. And as a follow-up to this campaign, Olay has additionally announced that it is funding STEM scholarships for girls across India. Let's take a look at the advert created for this campaign.
কি খুঁজছিস তোরা?
নর্থ স্টার।
নর্থ স্টার? ওরে বাবা, তুই তো বড় হয়ে অ্যাস্ট্রোনট হবি।
সত্যি?
হ্যাঁ।
আমি কি হব?
তুই হবি স্টার, বড় ফিল্ম স্টার।
একদম ঠিক বলেছো, স্টার হবে।
आपके भाई या पापा कोई है?
बताओ क्या हुआ? वो भी आके मुझे ही बताएंगे।
राजू, दिस इज फैंटास्टिक वर्क। प्रिंसिपल मैडम को अच्छे से प्रेजेंट भी करना पड़ेगा। क्या बोलोगे?
This windmill is actually a model of a wind turbine, and it's powered by a motor of this old toy car. And you know, we made this to emphasize that we must switch now to wind energy. How was the class today for you? It was so hot for me.
കോഡിംഗ് ഒക്കെ അറിയാമോ?
പിന്നെ കഴിഞ്ഞ വർഷം പഠിക്കാൻ തുടങ്ങി।
ये देखो क्या हाल बना था। वाओ मिया, ये सब तुमने बनाया है? सबकी बेटियां प्रिंसेसेस और फेरीज बन के आएंगी और उनके बीच में मेरी बेटी डस्टबिन कैप पहन के रोबोट बन के खड़ी रहेगी। कैसे लगेगा बोल?
पापा मैं करूं? मुझे पता है मैं वो फोन पे
गोरेशन चेन को तुम्हारे कपड़े गंदे हो जाएंगे अंदर हाथ से।
Thank you, April. It's a bit a long campaign, but I like it. It's very emotional. So this was an Olay Procter & Gamble campaign. When we asked Generation Z in Asia which world issues they would like to tackle, like a long list of 20 different issues they would tackle the first, and they could only choose 3 of them. So the most important, we saw that the following on this slide are the ones in which there was a significant difference with other older generations. And again, it comes to gender inequality, the third one in this graph, a good example of what Olay has addressed in their campaign, but also racism, suppression and abuse of women, also a bit related to what we just saw, and LGBTQIA+ rights as well. So the gender fluidity and gender diversity, or not anymore talking about genders or sexual preferences in general. These are really the social issues that are more important to Generation Z. So the S of ESG when we talk about sustainability. bit related to this equality is again the metaverse and how this young generation is looking at avatars. And avatars actually is giving them the opportunity to be someone else every day. On one day they can be a monster, on the other day they can be a girl, even if they are a boy physically. Which we also see in our study when we ask them, do you think that the virtual world is a more equal world? We see that 6 out of 10 almost of Generation MZ is agreeing with that, again, significantly higher than older generations. And this creates new opportunities also for media brands. Like Fox, for instance, just recently announced a new show called Alter Ego, which can be seen as a crossover between Masked Singer on one hand and The Voice or X Factor on the other hand. Let's have a look at how that works.
Lost dreams and second chances are reignited when singers from all walks of life become the stars they've always dreamed of being.
Look what we got here! What?
Growing up, people always judged me by the way I looked and the way I sang, but I realized I don't have to be afraid.
In front of some of the biggest names in music, will.i.am, Alanis Morissette, Grimes, and Nick Lachey, as they search for the next generation superstar.
I can't wait to meet the human beings behind these alter egos.
An alter ego actually really helps me a lot in life.
I like the hair. Yo, do that again, bro.
So yeah, this new technology and avatar is also allowing introvert people to become a star on stage or behind the stage and helping them in their careers as well. So summing up this third part, we talked about the wokeness of Generation Z. They are clicking for change. They're click activists. They want to get rid of taboos, whether it's related to gender stereotypes or LGBT or other inequalities. And they are also using virtual worlds to be more equal as well. And here a brand can be a platform for social impact, which means it's helping Generation Z and young generations to create the better world that they're dreaming of. Let's move to the last chapter of the presentation before we go to the Q&A. And it's related to the future. How do they look at their career? How do they look at the financial aspect? And one thing is for sure, the young generation understands they will have to work hard to really achieve the things that they want in life. We already are seeing it in the amount of them that has a side hustle or a side job to earn extra money, even if they already have a full-time job. It's more than half of Generation MZ that has this side job. An example of this is Jamie Ibanez. Jamie already started a side job when he was only 15 years old in high school. He was selling snacks to his friends who were more lazy than him and earning a little margin on what he was selling to his fellow schoolmates. So he was able to save $5,000 from doing that. Then when he graduated, he started working for an employer, but soon the hunger for entrepreneurship, being in the snack business, became more important to him. And it's also something we see in the results of our study, like 6 out of 10 of Gen Zers and 65% of the millennials would like to start their own business, and which is even higher in the Philippines, in Thailand, and in China. And it's also what Jamie did. So he used his $5,000 of savings to invest in a vending machine. And today he has 32 vending machines and he's running his own vending machine business, of which he is earning $10,000 a month. But he's also creating videos on how to start your own 6-figure vending business on YouTube. And this is again earning him another $10,000 a month. So half of his income is coming from his social media presence and the other half from his business. He's, by the way, not the only social or vending machine influencer. When you go on YouTube, you will find that there's many others talking about the vending machine business. So vending machine influencers, you could perhaps call them. Now, money is important to Generation Z and status as well. We see that this is the case for 6 out of 10 Gen Z and millennials. And when we ask them on their finances, most of them are happy to do everything online without any physical interaction anymore. And 4 out of 10 is also already using robo advisors. And I think we have some financial examples from Asia as well, April.
Yeah, so indeed, money is important to Gen Z and millennials, and they are happy to do their finances online. And I think Grab knows that. So earlier this year, they launched GrabFin in Singapore, a new brand that combines its payments and financial services, offering digital payments, insurance, lending, and wealth management services with everyday financial services that are simple to activate with just a few click-in apps. So Grab's super app platform is definitely driving financial inclusion across Southeast Asia. The convenience and the offering of these super apps have led to a growing popularity among the young Southeast Asian population. It's also helped propel the region to becoming one of the fastest growing fintech markets in the world. Another example is Gojek. So just last year, super app Gojek, they merged with Indonesian e-commerce player Tokopedia to form the super app GoTo, providing payments and financial services to consumers in Indonesia. Back to you, Yuri.
Thanks, April. So yes, finance and money is important to this generation. And we saw in our data that 3/4 of Generation Z has made investments in the past year, a bit higher in Taiwan. And 1 out of 2 Generation Z and 54% of millennials in Asia is following what we can call finfluencers, influencers on financial stuff, a bit higher in China as well. Sometimes, though, we see the wrong type of influencer, and I think the following one is really an example of a finfluencer freak.
$500,000 for my Rolls Royce, $750,000 for my Aventador, another $250,000 for a few other cars each. How do I have this at 22 years old? Let me tell you, it's NFTs. If you're not capitalizing on this multi-billion-dollar market, you've got it all wrong. Join my Discord and I'm going to teach you exactly how to get into this industry, whether you have little to no money, a medium amount of money, or a high intensive amount of capital to generate massive revenue. Join the Discord.
So yes, really a bit freaky. I hope my daughters are not following this finfluencer when they're spending the allowance that I'm giving them. Talking about investments, whereas Gen Z is, of course, also investing in traditional stock and other investments, we do see significant differences when it comes to, let's say, the more modern way of investing. For instance, when we look at crypto or digital currencies, 1 out of 5 Generation Z in Asia has already invested in digital currencies. And with millennials, it's even higher. Also, when we look at NFTs, again, this is significantly higher percentages than we find with all the generations in Asia. So 11% for Gen Z and 15% for millennials. And again, on top of the screen, you see those markets where it's even higher. Another difference we found is that Gen Z is significantly investing more in art. So again, it shows the importance of creativity to them. And to them, NFTs, for instance, are the combination of art and a financial investment and digital ownership. But they're also investing more in luxury fashion brands like Louis Vuitton or Gucci, or even in streetwear like limited edition sneakers, you could say. And I think, April, you have one example of that as well in Asia.
Yeah, so talking about investments in fashions, what happened was there was a boom of the sneaker resale market during the pandemic, giving Gen Z a lucrative side hustle. Now, even my Gen Z friends were getting into it. Novaship, Asia's fastest growing marketplace for limited edition sneakers, even announced that sellers on the platform can now opt to be paid with cryptocurrencies. Cowen Equity Research actually estimated that the sneaker market could be worth 30 billion by 2030. Yeah.
So yes, it's a great investment, April. The pity of that is that you have these nice Nikes, but you have to leave them in their box and not wear them because otherwise they lose their worth. But this is typically how this young generation is also investing even in fashion. So that's it. To wrap up the last topic, we talked about their hunger for entrepreneurship and how they're hustling hard and working hard to achieve something in life. We also talked about passion economy and how being an influencer for them is also quite important, but they're also following influencers and they're more involved with investments than any previous young generation, because money and status are quite important to the Asian Gen Z. And here a brand can, of course, support this micro entrepreneurship, but also this importance of status and finances for this Asian young generation. That's it when it comes to content. We will quickly move into Q&A and look at the questions you've posted in the chat. If you want to read more about our report, because we've only highlighted some of the aspects, you can download the full report by either scanning the QR code right now, and it will give you access to the report, or you can use the URL at the bottom of the screen. Or we will also send you an email in following up with the links to the report as well. Before going to the questions, I think that Mark is still sharing. No, April, you're still sharing some cases. I don't remember who was sharing the 2 cases.
Yes, that's right. So the first case study I would like to share is from Nike Sportswear. So basically, Nike Sportswear, they wanted to re-engage with young consumers in Hong Kong. So their aim was to build a localized strategy and to reignite the local sneaker culture. So this also ties into the question of personalization for this generation. Therefore, the brand needed to gain an in-depth understanding of what defines Gen Z, their beliefs, their values, and their attitudes. However, there were the effects of the Hong Kong protest movement and the practical challenges of COVID-19. So it was harder than ever to get these young people in Hong Kong to open up in a face-to-face setting. And I think it's also quite clear that offline approaches like focus group is definitely off the table. Knowing that this generation, as told by Yuri, is familiar with living a huge part of their lives online, and even more so in a pandemic reality, we decided to take an online approach to this challenge. So what we did was we invited 30 young Hong Kong consumers, a mix of fashionistas and sneakerheads aged 18 to 24, to share their lives and views on fashion in a 3-week online community on our Square platform. We asked them to share their lives, share photos, videos of their outfit, show their clothes and shoe collection, and talk about their favorite Instagram influencers. The engagement of consumers through the community activities was overwhelming, as we gathered hundreds of rich media consumer posts in merely 3 weeks. They definitely open up about who they are, who they want to be, and what's important to them, and they shared a lot of personal stories. So what this project really showed us is how to engage young people based on their evolving state of mind, using local online community activities to talk about a topic that is passionate and interesting to them. It also reviewed how local relatable influencers shared stories about their personal interests and journey. So all these insights provided Nike with a 360 view of their consumers, understanding the what, where, when, who, and why of consumer behavior. So second example that I would like to share is from Manulife Philippines. So Manulife is one of the largest financial companies in the world, with operations in Asia, Canada, and US. So they have a mission to make consumers' life every day better. In the Philippines, many of Manulife customers are millennials and Gen Zs. During the pandemic, Manulife shone the spotlight on the challenges, attitudes, and behaviors of this generation to understand how the company can serve them better and help them achieve a healthy and financially secure future. So what we did was a 2-stage approach to help them uncover the financial attitudes and habits of Gen Z and millennials during the pandemic. So first, we used the Green Room, which is Manulife's Philippines online insight community, alongside with desk research to develop qualitative teams on Gen Z. Second, we conducted an online quantitative survey to validate the acquired information. So what did we find out from this research? Well, we found out that Gen Z and Gen Y have become more financially conscious during the pandemic, recognizing the role that financial education and preparedness play in building a more financially secure future. Gen Zers also express a heightened concern about declining mental health, showing the importance of taking active steps to achieve mental wellness, especially when they are rooted from financial worries and insecurities. Millennials have also become more focused on growing their money, empowering themselves to be more financially savvy and to take charge of their future through a balanced approach to risk and protection when it comes to investment choices. So findings of this study were published as a white paper through Manulife's website and social media channel. It formed a part of a range of ongoing marketing and product launch initiatives, encourage young people to build financial resilience during the pandemic. So these are the 2 case studies sharings that I have for everyone today. Thank you so much for being part of the conversation. So I guess it's time to open up the floor for questions, I guess. Yuri?
Yes, exactly. And I think, Mark, you will help me to guide the Q&A. If you have questions, you can still post them in the chat. Mark, are there any questions?
Yeah, we do have a few questions, Yuri. Maybe to kick it off, maybe the first question, to what extent would the Gen Z be conscious about what they actually post online? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, they're more pragmatic and more conscious about this than Gen M or the millennials, I would say, where millennials at first were really bragging a bit about their social lives on Facebook, and it was open to everyone, even to future employers. We see that Gen Z is much more conscious about the long-term effects of what you post online. So they're not using Facebook often, but they're also curating Instagram, only showing like the last picture they really want to share with the entire world. And for the rest, they have like closed groups with friends that they really trust. So they are quite wary about the consequences. We also saw it in the results. I think 2/3 of Gen Z said, I'm really conscious about what I'm posting. And there's also a majority that says maybe social media companies have too much power, so they're really aware of what they are doing online. On the other hand, what we do see is that sometimes they're willing to trade in part of their privacy when they get something in return. So when it comes to personalized services or free services or goodies, then they say, okay, I will give some of my data when I get something in return from the company.
Wow. Very interesting, Yuri, and thank you. So I guess we can entertain one more question before we close the event. This is kind of interesting. We know that Gen Z and Gen M would be actually accounts for half of the region by 2025. But interestingly, will Gen Z be like the Gen M when they are older, or there will be a grow out of some behavior? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's actually a question I get a lot. And the only way to answer it is to do long-term studies. But luckily, I've been involved with studying young generations for my whole career. So I started with the millennials. And I got exactly the same comment when I was presenting on millennials. I said, yeah, but when millennials are older, maybe they will become like Gen X. What we see today when millennials have grown older is they're not copies of Generation X, or Generation X is not a copy of the baby boomers when they grow older. So I don't believe in this. I must admit that certain results we get in our studies are sometimes life stage related. So it's not always, this is like really a generational difference, because of course, when you're 15 or 18, you have a different context than when you're 25 or 30. So some parts of it, especially when it comes to things that are related to identity search, or to your studies or jobs, for instance, they might be life stage related. For instance, we see with the youngest generation, they often say, I want to study abroad, I want to work abroad. And when we look at millennials today, they would say, yeah, but I have a family. So I don't necessarily want to be somewhere far away from my family. And it's a bit difficult with the kids. So this is a good example of how life stage has an influence on some results. So it's often related to lifestyle related questions. But when it comes to values, I think we often see differences between generations, because generations are a product of two things. They're a product of their parents and how their parents were raising them. And every generation has a different generation of parents. So the Gen Z have the the baby boomers sorry, the millennials have the baby boomers as parents. Gen Z has Generation X as parents, and Generation X is quite different than baby boomers. Generation X is more about status and more individual, more pragmatic, which we see reflected also with the kids, because they've been growing up with parents that have been raising them with these values. And another thing is, every generation is a product of the time when they are coming of age. So I already talked about the formative years when I was talking about the impact of the pandemic on them. What we see is that what happens when you're young at that age has a drastic effect on how you look at the world and at life. So it's not a coincidence. The wokeness, for instance, it's not a coincidence. It's because Black Lives Matters what is happening, for instance, #MeToo is happening. So this has an effect on the importance of gender equality and racial equality for this generation as well. So it's a long answer to a short question, Mark.
No, very, very insightful, Yuri. And I think it's the key takeaway for our brand was more or less, there is a need for bespoke strategy. Definitely, there's a special strategy when reaching out to your Zoomers. So I guess that's it from all of us. Again, thank you everyone for joining in today's event, and let's engage with our Zoomers. So see you around, and thank you again. Bye-bye.